This is Hospitality 1-to-1, conversations on the industry. Here's your host, Chris Bettis.
Sarah, Christian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
The pleasure is ours. You know, I did my research on your company, and just a terrific Multipass is one of those out-of-the-box companies I can't wait to talk more about.
No, thank you.
You're welcome. But they always say good things come to those who wait. And so I wanted to, before we did that, one of the new features here on the Hospitality 1-to-1 podcast is the Hive. And for those who know who the Hive is when we take normally 1 minute and we ask some fast-fired questions to get to know more about our guests. Now today, you get two for the price of one. Because there's two of them, we're not going to make it any easier for them. We're going to make it even harder. So now it's 2 minutes they have instead of 1 minute, and they've got to answer the question. So with that being said, Christian, Sarah, are you ready for the
We are ready.
All right, here we go. And the clock starts now. What was your first job?
Army. I was in the Army as a military police officer. First job, 17.
How about you? Oh, you. Clock's going.
I was a backup for chefs that came from around the world to teach cooking classes here in St. Louis.
Wow. If you could live anywhere, where would that be?
I would live in France. I just love the culture there.
I would live in Arizona, where it's nice and warm all year round, but it's a pretty, the prices aren't as high as California.
Apple or Android?
Android.
Apple.
Ooh. Morning person or night owl?
Morning person, definitely.
Morning person.
Morning person. Coke or Pepsi?
Neither.
If I had to pick one, Coke.
Coke. How about favorite movie?
The Short.
The Big Short.
The Big Short. Thank you.
For me, Wolf on Wall Street.
Wolf on Wall Street.
Yeah.
Call or text?
Call.
Call.
And second to last, left-handed or right-handed?
Left-handed.
Right-handed.
Left-handed. You go, left-handed. And last one, best vacation?
St. Croix in the Virgin Islands.
Hiking through the Pacific Northwest.
Wow, you both have me beat. And with that, the time is up. That was great. Left-handed. Christian, I knew I liked you. Left-handed. I mean, come on.
Yes.
I'm not knocking you, Sarah. I'm not knocking you. Just, left is right.
Yep.
I bat left-handed.
Hey, that's, you know what? I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I actually bat right-handed, and I golf right-handed. But there we go. Well, with that being said, we had a chance to learn more about you. Oh, and I always tell people who listen or watch the podcast now, if you're a future guest, don't think that just because these are the questions we asked that we're going to ask you those same questions will keep you on your toes. So I wanted to kind of get kicked right off here and talk because I think before we go any further into the usage, why don't we talk about, what is Multipass?
Multipass is truly an ecosystem that really promotes innovation. So we partner up with all kinds of spaces that we bring into our network, and they have common standards where we said what makes an innovative space, and we believe in 4 principles that we make sure that these spaces align with, and also look towards building even in their future goals of their space. And the 4 of them are community, wellness, sustainability, and diversity.
Now, when it comes to that, because I think we probably should walk it back, because the idea of common spaces, or what you're talking, multipass, when it comes to these innovative spaces,
Mm-hmm.
in case someone doesn't know, if we're talking to someone, perhaps, I'm not trying to categorize generations, but in particular those of the baby boomer or Generation X mentality who may or may not know what that is, kind of define what we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what Multipass actually does for these innovative spaces, is we help grow awareness for what these spaces do. And what these spaces do are, a lot of them are co-working. Some of them are just collaborative event spaces, but it's where you can go and feel like your work and your life mesh together, and you can really thrive as both an individual and as a business owner.
Yep. And as just the layman's term of like co-working, a co-working space is just a place where you don't have, as a company, have so much overhead. Like, so you're not leasing out a huge bunch of square footage, but you're able to be in a space where it has different areas where you can just, pop up with your laptop. Maybe it's like a little corner where you really like the best, maybe has a view of natural lighting. So you are able to, as just maybe a startup or just somebody that may be working remotely for another company, you're able to work in this space where your company doesn't have to worry about spending all this money on all the square footage.
So if you've traditionally worked at Starbucks or another coffee shop, instead of going there, now you can get a monthly membership to these spaces where they have various amenities like meeting rooms, conference rooms, dual screens, and it's an office-like environment. A lot of the spaces are very well designed, and Multipass looks for the spaces that meet the 4 criteria of community, diversity, sustainability, and wellness, and helps promote those to everyone who could benefit from this type of space.
Now, I mean, on a personal note, I can fully understand the benefit of this, but I'm going to play devil's advocate for the sake of conversation.
Yep.
Someone who's been, say, working from home
Mm-hmm.
for the past 5-10 years or longer,
Mm-hmm.
explain why it would be more beneficial to work at a co-working site like we talk about Multipass as opposed to working from home.
So one of the benefits is that a lot of times, like, you may have a lot more distractions at home, like if you have kids or the dog, or there's so many other things that you could be doing at home instead of actually just getting down and working at a co-working space. You're able to just focus on getting that work done. Also, another benefit is that at home you're isolated. You're not out. You're not able to build relationships as much. So at co-working spaces, that building relationships is very vital to the growth of any business. People do business with people, and so you're able to get work done, but also like going to get some coffee and like meeting somebody that maybe that now are building a relationship with, and you guys do business together. So it's just.
Yeah, there are some people who are home hermits and they thrive in a home office, and that's great for them. We found through our work that a lot of people who work from home are not thriving in that situation. They want to get out every day or at least 3 times a week and be a little bit social and be more productive in a new setting. And for those people, traditionally the option was a noisy coffee shop or a cafe that doesn't have enough outlets. And you're always feeling the need to go buy another pastry to like be worth your stay there. So here's a new alternative that has sprung up in the past 10 years, and it's very affordable to the person who had before been working at home.
So let's talk logistics for a second. I mean, these spaces, we'll go over the locations in a moment, but are we talking about traditional office settings? Are there cubes? Are there offices? Is it an open community space? Kind of give me an idea what they look like.
So most of them are very Open floor plans. So that's more of the traditional co-working, where it could be like different areas. So like coves or just huddle spaces. So there's just different places where you kind of personalize like where you work best. Like maybe it's a cool chair, and so these different spaces, they're able to provide that. And also, a lot of the co-working spaces have private offices. So if you are a startup, you're not having to worry about all these long leases, but you still get an office space then with shared amenities. So it's really cool that like in these co-working spaces, it's some of them are very hybrid, where it's like a lot of co-working. Some of it's more high-end, where there's co-working spaces specifically designed for kind of corporate businesses, where like Industrious is one of those. It's a national chain of co-working spaces where they have office space, but then just shared amenities like the shared kitchen or a shared conference room.
Yeah, Industrious would be considered a collaborative workspace. Co-working's more of that open floor plan. So there's quite a range out there on the market, from all private offices with shared amenities to all open floor plans. And the best collaborative workspaces have a little bit of everything.
Now, like for example, if you're a small company, a startup, and you don't want a PO box, if you don't want to have it go to your personal mailbox, do you offer the services for them to be able to have mail go to a certain location, or is there a receptionist perhaps who can, if they are there, direct a phone to them, or in other words, give you that big office feel, but on a small office budget?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of co-working spaces, that's like the primary thing, where like you get an actual address where your mail can come to. Like that's kind of a just like a primary need, that like whenever you're creating a co-working space, that's exactly what they have. So that's a huge benefit for these startups.
Yeah, you're not giving out your personal address. And then some of the collaborative workspaces offer virtual office, where it's pretty much just an address that you can send your mail to. Some of them might have like cloud storage access or some other little perks in that virtual office.
So when it comes, let's kind of look at this from a real world standpoint. All right. We know that you can, and we'll talk about the different plans in a moment, but we know that you can go, to certain cities across the country as of right now and take advantage of these office spaces. So that's if it's pre-planned. How rapidly can someone utilize? So if, for example, if I were to go to Houston or go to Atlanta and fly there today, how soon could I be in one of the shared common space offices?
Just like it's just about booking. So right now we have a way for people that aren't Multipass members to be able to book spaces. So you don't have to necessarily be a Multipass member to use it, but it's where you can book on our platform, and that will be approved through the space. And then normally it will probably take maybe at least 12 hours or so. So I would give it like at least a day before you're trying to go there. And so all they do is approve it, and they have a day rate, they have like a week rate. If you are a Multipass member, the way that works is you join an actual space, and that's where your community is, where you're building that relationships. But then you're able to go to the other spaces in our network without even having to book. You just go there and you sign in as a Multipass guest, and you're good to go without any of like having to book on our platform. So yeah.
Before we go into, because I want to talk more about the different levels, different types of services you offer, as well as the locations. I want to talk about that, but I always find it's really fascinating to talk about the people side of things.
Yeah.
So when you look at your website and meet the team, the two of you, And I want to get an idea. I mean, tell me your story. How did you guys get to where you are today? How did you guys meet? And how did you guys come to the idea of starting Multipass?
Wow. Thank you for that. So I originally had the idea last year, early last year, I guess it was. I was a member. I'm a member at a co-working space here in St. Louis, and I wanted to be able to go to other spaces and connect with other people without like having to like have another membership or just without all that red tape. And I was like, I don't know what I want to call it. But then it finally came up with, I have like a multipass. And then I met Sarah. We actually met at another co-working space at a kind of a network kind of entrepreneurial event called Venture Cafe. It's a nationwide kind of networking event where they bring together other entrepreneurs for kind of like a happy hour type stuff. And we connected and I started talking to her about my idea. And
I really liked it because I was about to head on a 6-week hiking trip around Vietnam and the Pacific Northwest. And I thought, oh, wow, like that's a great way for me to work and travel at the same time. I think now, like the millennial generation is really looking for a lot of like flexibility in their work in order to travel. And with technology, we can do both at the same time, but we haven't quite figured out all of like the best way to work while traveling. And so I envision Multipass and having access to all of these well-intentionally designed spaces as a great way to get work done and have some fun too.
So let's get this straight, just because in case people weren't following along on their scorecards. You both met at a co-working site. Okay. You met there, and through meeting there, you formed a company that helps with co-working sites.
Yep, that is true.
So you're a walking testimonial that this works.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. And now what's cool is that we're now able to share knowledge to other people that are starting up co-working spaces, and we're actually now providing also even a service for helping co-working spaces that are starting up.
Yeah, we're gaining a lot of expertise on what makes us, what designs and what facets of the space make for those very organic, collaborative interactions that result in a company being formed like ours. And so we have relationships with architects and design firms, and we really rely on their big data to then bring that to the collaborative workspaces.
You just brought up a great question I was going to ask next, and you kind of beat me to it. So we have, every place is different. It has its own unique DNA, for sure. But what defines a successful space? In other words, if there's someone out there who has an office space, a unique environment, or a loft area, for example, that they're like, well, I'd be happy to use this as a common workspace. What, in your opinion, makes a good space? What are the characteristics?
Well, for us, and we have this clearly laid out because this is how we determine what innovative spaces are added to the Multipass ecosystem. For us, what makes a great space is one that breeds innovation. And we've touched on this earlier. There are 4 pillars that we see lead to innovation, and that is community. So having a very vibrant, dynamic community where people are talking to each other over the coffee bar.
Maybe starting a company.
Diversity. So within our ecosystem, we have a lot of different entities, both small and large, anywhere from tech to design to art.
But many different like social classes, races, religions, all being able to like work in different spaces. So.
Yeah, we feel that diversity is key to innovation, because the more ideas that you get from these different parties, the better your product is or service. And then the third pillar is sustainability. And this is both sustainability in terms of like being eco-friendly, but it's also sustainable in terms of like the company's financial state.
Okay.
So if you don't have like a solid company, then innovation is going to be really difficult to flourish from that company. And lastly is wellness. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so wellness is a very important thing for us, like, because we really believe in work-life balance and being able to start your morning off with meditation or yoga class. And many spaces are now understanding that they have to offer these things because people want to work well, they want to live well, and they want to just like have a whole holistic life. So,
and we don't have to convince any HR professional that wellness leads to innovation, but for someone who's not as versed in that, wellness, in fact, is a pillar that plays a huge role in the rest of the pillars. Because if you're not well at an individual level and at a company level, then it affects everything moving in that ecosystem.
Well, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, if you've got, if your affairs from a personal or professional level are not in order, they can bleed through to the other parts of your life. So it definitely makes complete sense.
And if you think of a natural ecosystem, like if one animal starts dying off, well, then that affects like this other animal that has a symbiotic relationship, and that affects the landscape, and everything just kind of gets thrown off.
Everything's interconnected pretty much.
That is correct.
So I wanted to go over this because I actually have a list here. Atlanta, Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Denver, Erie, PA, Houston, Kansas City, Nashville, St. Louis, and Washington, D.C. Those, as of this afternoon, were the sites you have across the country. So let's talk. I mean, what made these cities in particular so important to start with?
So we actually first started off with like looking at what are the cities that are growing the most as far as like startup cities. So we started off targeting those cities, and then the word kind of got out about our company, and then people started referring spaces to us, and that kind of happened organically. Like Erie, Pennsylvania, that was not on our list, but somebody referred that, and then they connected that relationship, and so now it's really interesting too, because like we're now also going to be targeting like smaller cities where co-working isn't as prevalent, and so there's no WeWork in some of the cities that we're going to be targeting, but we're able to then like help kind of bring that co-working kind of industry up in those different cities. So
looking at it from a practical standpoint, okay, so you talk about the smaller cities. We know the pillars that you're basing a individual building, if you will, on. But as you grow, obviously you can't be at every one of these places at one time, and as your growth begins to increase, being in multiple places to scout multiple property at one time is not as easy.
Exactly.
So kind of walk me through how the process usually is if an area feels they'd be a good fit for that type of space. How do you do this practically? I mean, we know what the pillars are, but how do you practically do it?
So practically how we're doing it, we're actually starting to work on kind of an innovative spaces kind of certification process where, so based on these pillars, we're able to evaluate if that space or even that area is a good fit for the ecosystem, and with it also being backed by national design leaders, and then, so once they get accepted, and we're also able to help them and lead them along these pillars.
So addressing your question of like physically going to all of the different spaces, what we're doing is creating a standard form in order to evaluate them, and then we can turn around and go to one of our partners in those cities and ask them to go and evaluate the space, whether it's an experienced coworker that we know in that space or one of our strategic partners.
So by my count, you have 11 spaces right now in your portfolio that you're working off of. Let's look ahead, say 12 months, let's say 24 months, so 1 to 2 years from now. How many spaces ideally are you hoping to have in place by then?
So we're working on that right now. Our goal is we've kind of slowed down and really started focusing on like the activation of new co-working spaces, because we found that a lot of the other spaces, they already have kind of like the processes all put together and everything like that. And we're looking at we're kind of like taking more of a slower approach now, and really focusing on building out the processes for these new spaces with the idea of like these pillars.
Yeah, but that's our focus for the next 6 months, I would say, and then a year to 2 years out. You know, the sky's the limit. We haven't put a number on it because we want to not base it on quantity, but quality of spaces.
Yep. Really
but you know, we've grown. We started targeting the spaces in August, and we gained 11 cities since then. So at that pace, we expect to grow exponentially.
Now, you actually offer what amounts to 3 different tiers, if you will. So you've got the Multipass Local, the Multipass Travel, and the Enterprise. Could you kind of break down what is the difference between those 3?
So the Enterprise, we have with like, so when companies are looking for space, we're able to negotiate give them access to these spaces. So that's the Multipass Enterprise.
And then the Local and Travel, we've actually merged together.
Okay.
Because we found that for simplicity, that people want to have access both locally and across the nation.
Yep.
So I want to take a moment, if we can, and let's put Multipass aside just for a second, because and I want to look at it from a business standpoint. Okay, I mean, this is an entity. It's an entrepreneurial opportunity that you both developed through meeting at one of these types of spaces. With that being said, it's a big step for someone to take a risk and to start their own business. It can be intimidating, it can be daunting, it can be scary, but it can also be very rewarding. So I wanted you to kind of to set apart here, what was the driver? I mean, you very well could have done your own thing, worked for corporate America and done your own thing. First, what was your individual drivers that kind of led you to want to start your own business, no matter what it is? And then I guess the second part to that would be, there's people listening right now who are watching it, who may be working in a hotel or a different hospitality entity, and they're saying to themselves, you know what, I want to hang my own shingle. I want to do my own thing. What advice do you have for them?
So the first part of that question is I come from a very entrepreneurial family, and I grew up seeing all of these businesses being created, nonprofits, and I just kind of was born into that passion, that drive, and I feel like it's in my blood. So I went to school for accounting, and when I graduated, I tried the accounting route. I lasted one tax season, and then I was just itching to start my own thing. So I have had one business before this. It was a cooking school, merging the culinary arts with nutrition. And I did that for a couple of years and learned so much about entrepreneurialism through that. And then I was recruited by a national food brand to build up their digital marketing department. So I did that for 2 years. And after 2 years, I was pretty tired of doing that. I was missing the entrepreneurial world. So I quit my corporate job. I went on my backpacking trip, and I came back, and Christian had already started working on Multipass, and I just joined him from there.
And for me, like I've always kind of thought I had like my life laid out, like being in the military, like, and also former police officer too. But like what was missing for me was that I really wanted to really be in control of like my destiny, and like and really build something that I can really build a legacy. Like I'm really all about legacy building. Like when, you know, I've take my last breath, like I know that I did something in this world.
Yep.
I made a difference. And so if anybody is looking to start their own thing, I really care about self-awareness, like really understanding like who you are. It's okay if you're the person that should be working in a corporation, like it's okay. That's not a bad thing. Just know who you are, and what is really going to make you truly happy. If really what's going to make you truly happy is having your own business where you know that you're not always sure like what the next year is going to bring, but it's a journey, it's a process. And one thing about being an entrepreneur is you have to be in love with that process. You may see people, companies, Instagram posts and Facebook posts and think everything is great with them. It's not. It's hard, and you have to be in love with it. You have to love it as much as like you just have to love this journey. And so I would say take the chance. You have to jump, you know, and you have to understand that if you're jumping into this entrepreneurial world, it's not going to happen right away. Like, and that's why I talked about the process, because it may take 12 months or several years. But I promise you that if you stick with it and you stick with something that you're passionate at, you will succeed. So.
And we say jump, but when we talk to people who are interested in testing one of their concepts, we very much break it down into baby steps for them. It's like you don't have to have a logo and a name and a finished product just to test the market. So while you do have to put yourself out there, and in that way it's a jump, it's really like you can do it in a non-professional manner and still like just start, you know,
start something. And that's what, like
it's just starting, less jumping,
and
more just like,
and that's the biggest thing is like people don't are afraid to just start something, like just make that decision. It's a mental thing.
And then lastly, roping in with our passion for how these collaborative workspaces help build companies. If once you made that decision, you know, contact us and we can help you place you into a space where you're going to thrive, because as entrepreneurs, we have to lean on our ecosystem in order to grow and develop.
That's a great point. I mean, you spend so much time talking about the color of the logo and the tagline and the name of the company, but how much time do you spend, you know, making sure the environment or the atmosphere that you're in is conducive to that company and to the vibe that you're trying to have? That's a great point. Well, I mean, terrific advice. It really is. And I know people may be saying to themselves, all right, I have the itch. I got to do this, you know, and or they're saying, you know what, I'm tired of working out of the basement, hearing the dryer go off every, 40 minutes. I need to get to one of these spaces, if you will. So if people want to get a hold of you, either to pick your brain or learn more about Multipass, how can they reach you guys?
The best way would be to go to our website and just send us an email through the contact us form. That's multipassapp.com.
Well, that's terrific. What we'll do, we're going to put a link to your website up on our website, yourhotelrecruiter.com. People can reach out that way. Just a great conversation. I know it's going to breed additional discussion, and I think this is the wave of the future. And you guys are on the ground floor, I think, of a fantastic investment. So I wish you nothing but the best for the rest of this year.
Thank you
so much.